Sibling bedroom. Proximity. Burke's cross-hallway risk factor. A technical analysis of exponential hazard. Multiplication and perpetrator. Risk assessment in multi-child households. Part 1. The spatial reality. Siblings on the same floor. The Ramsey home's spatial layout created a critical vulnerability for an intruder attempting to remove JonBenet. Burke's bedroom was on the same floor, in immediate proximity to JonBenet's room, separated by a hallway. This spatial arrangement created what forensic risk assessment calls exponential hazard multiplication. The presence of a second child on the same floor doesn't simply double the risk, it multiplies it exponentially. Each variable compounds the others, creating cascading failure points for an operation's success. Critical spatial facts. JonBenet and Burke's bedrooms were located on the second floor. Both rooms had partially open doors. Burke's room was accessible by cross-hallway movement. Bathroom. Facilities were shared hallway proximity. The hallway was a zone of potential child circulation. An intruder operating in JonBenet's bedroom, removing her from bed, transporting her through the hallway, and exiting the second floor, faced the constant risk of encountering Burke. Whether Burke was in his room, had emerged for nighttime bathroom use, or was moving in the hallway for other reasons. Part 2. Nighttime bathroom visit probability. The statistical foundation. Understanding the risk Burke's presence created requires examining the probability that a 10-year-old boy would be awake and moving during the night in which an extraction occurred. JonBenet's documented bathroom behaviors. She was a fairly good sleeper. She very rarely would wake up at night. When she did wake, she sometimes had wet the bed and would move to another bed or come to parents' bed. She occasionally wet the bed, indicating her body's physiological response to nighttime. Sleep was a potential disruption. Burke's documented bathroom behaviors. Patsy testified she could hear Burke go to the bathroom because his bathroom is sort of more toward the end of our bedroom. This testimony reveals, 1. Burke did go to the bathroom at night, not a hypothetical. 2. His bathroom visits were notable enough for Patsy to mention they were audible. The fact that Patsy could hear him going to the bathroom suggests this was a recurring, not extraordinary, nighttime event. She differentiated between Burke's bathroom sounds, which she could hear, and JonBenet's, which she reported she wouldn't hear, indicating Burke's bathroom activity was a regular feature of nighttime household function. The probability calculation. For a 10-year-old boy, nighttime bathroom visits are not extraordinary. Children in this age range with developing bladder control, particularly if they were excited, Christmas night, fatigued, or if they drank fluids at the Whites party, would have a meaningful probability of nighttime bathroom use. The testimony suggests Burke's nighttime bathroom visits were common enough that Patsy had developed acoustic awareness of them. She knew she could hear them. This suggests multiple visits across multiple nights, a pattern established over time. Part 3. The hallway intersection. Hazard. Exponential risk multiplication. An intruder removing JonBenet from the second floor would need to navigate the hallway. Burke's room opened to the same hallway. The spatial layout created an intersection point, the hallway where an intruder transporting an unconscious or struggling child could encounter an awake Burke. Risk multiplication variables. Variable 1. Extraction timing probability. Probability that an intruder would extract JonBenet while Burke was asleep. Significant, but not certain. Probability that extraction would avoid the period when Burke was in a bathroom or awake state. Requires timing luck variable 2. Encounter probability. Probability that Burke, if awake for bathroom use, would emerge from his room during the extraction window. Moderate. Probability that emerging Burke would encounter the intruder. High. Both using same hallway. Variable. 3. Behavioral response probability. Probability that Burke would not immediately vocalize or resist upon encountering an unfamiliar adult, low. Probability that Burke would remain silent and unalarmed, minimal. Probability that Burke would attempt to get help or alert parents, moderate to high multiplication principle. Risk is not additive in security scenarios. It multiplies. A 70% success rate in avoiding a single risk combined with a 70% success rate in a second independent risk does not yield 40% combined success. 70% plus 70%, 140%. Therefore 140%, 100% or 40% failure. Instead, probability of avoiding both risks is 0.70, 0.70, 0.49, or 49% probability of success. This means a 51% probability that at least one risk event occurs. With multiple independent variables, Burke being awake, Burke needing bathroom access, Burke emerging during extraction, Burke reacting to the intruder, the cumulative failure probability becomes substantial. Part 4. Intruder response scenarios. What happens if Burke is encountered? The forensic question becomes, what would an intruder do if Burke emerged from his room during extraction of JonBenet? Scenario A. Intruder does not encounter Burke. The intruder extracts JonBenet undetected while Burke remains asleep. Operation succeeds without complication. This scenario requires Burke asleep, Burke not needing bathroom, extraction occurring outside Burke's potential awareness window. Scenario B. Intruder encounters Burke. Burke remains asleep. Burke emerges for bathroom visit while intruder is moving through hallway with JonBenet. Burke, still groggy and disoriented, does not fully register the situation. Intruder manages interaction without Burke's full consciousness. Probability low. A child emerging for bathroom typically becomes more alert as they move. Scenario C. Intruders encounters conscious, alert, Burke. Burke emerges fully awake and aware. Burke encounters unfamiliar adult carrying unconscious sibling. This is the critical failure scenario from the intruder's perspective. Response options in Scenario C. 1. Intimidate Burke into silence. Requires threat or violence against a second child. 2. Physically restrain Burke. Requires incapacitating or controlling a second child. 3. Persuade Burke compliance. Unlikely to succeed with unknown adult and unconscious sibling. 4. Ignore Burke and continue. Burke would alert parents immediately. 5. Abort extraction. Intruder abandons operation and leaves. Part 5. The intimidation problem. Violence. Multiplication. If an intruder encountered Burke during extraction, intimidating him into silence would require creating fear sufficient to prevent Burke from immediately calling for parents or alerting. Household? What would be required? Visible threat, weapon, physical aggression. Demonstrated willingness to harm Burke. Credible threat of harm if Burke alerts parents. Sufficient terror to override a 10-year-old's impulse to seek parental help. Forensic implications. 1. If an intruder used violence, gesture threat against Burke, evidence of that encounter should exist. Physical marks, psychological trauma evidenced in statements, behavioral changes. 2. Burke would have detailed knowledge of the intruder, appearance, speech, demeanor, weapon if present. 3. Creating fear in Burke sufficient to ensure his silence while transporting JonBenet would require additional time, additional violence, risk, additional complexity, behavioral reality. A 10-year-old encountering an armed stranger carrying his unconscious sister would be the single most triggering event for parental alerting. Preventing that alert requires extraordinary intimidation or incapacitation. Part 6. The physical restraint. Problem: dual custody challenge. If an intruder needed to physically prevent Burke from alerting parents, the intruder would need to manage both JonBenet, remove from home, and Burke, control, silence him, simultaneously. Operational challenge. One intruder cannot simultaneously carry an unconscious child and physically restrain an alert 10-year-old. Two intruders would multiply evidence: footprints, DNA, witnesses, planning complexity. Managing both children at once exponentially increases the intruder's risk and complexity, forensic expectation. If Burke had been encountered and managed by the intruder, evidence should exist. Signs of physical restraint or struggle on Burke, trauma indicators in his behavior or statements, possible evidence of threat intimidation used, behavioral changes reflecting the encounter. The absence of such evidence creates investigative questions about whether an encounter actually occurred. Part 7. Habitat patterns. Burke's documented. Nighttime circulation. Evidence from testimony suggests Burke's nighttime bathroom visits were a regular feature of household function. Patsy's testimony. I could hear Burke go to the bathroom because his bathroom is sort of more toward the end of our bedroom. Implications of this statement. 1. Burke regularly went to the bathroom at night. Not a one-time event, Patsy was remembering. 2. The bathroom was positioned such that sounds traveled to the parents' bedroom. Patsy's ability to distinguish Burke's bathroom sounds suggests she recognized a pattern. 4. This was notable enough to mention to investigators, indicating it was part of normal household behavior. Other documented patterns. Burke occasionally came into parents' bed. Burke's room had a door partially open, allowing hallway access if he needed to move. There was a bathroom light left on for both children. John testified, "The bathroom, there's a little night light. The hallway was illuminated." To some degree, bathroom light providing light to hallway. These patterns suggest a household where nighttime child movement was not unusual, and visual acoustic awareness of that movement existed. Part 8. Spatial configuration and concealment, hiding and extraction. An intruder removing JonBenet would face critical timing challenges related to Burke's potential presence. Time window variables. How long would extraction take? Positioning in bed, handling unconscious child, moving through hallway, descending stairs. What is the probability Burke would be awake during that window? What is the probability Burke would emerge for bathroom during that window? What is the probability that any audio from extraction, footsteps, JonBenet's limp body, movement on stairs, would be heard despite open bathroom light hallway illumination? Acoustic factors. Open doors allow sound transmission. Bathroom light on suggests hallway partially illuminated. Movement carrying a child. Downstairs would produce acoustic signals. Footsteps, potential body contact with door frames or stairwells. An alert Burke in the hallway dark bathroom would have clear acoustic access to extraction sounds. Concealment strategy. An intruder would need to extract JonBenet during a period when 1. Burke was definitely asleep, not probable given his documented nighttime bathroom pattern. 2. Burke's sleep would be deep enough that acoustic signals didn't trigger awareness. Burke wasn't due for his normal nighttime bathroom routine. The challenge is that an intruder cannot reliably predict these variables without extensive household surveillance. Part 9. Surveillance requirement, the knowledge prerequisite. For an intruder to successfully manage the Burke risk, the intruder would need detailed knowledge, required knowledge. Burke's sleep depth and patterns, Burke's nighttime bathroom frequency and timing. The specific times Burke was most likely to be in deep sleep. Burke's response patterns to unexpected situations, alternative escape routes if Burke was encountered, Burke's typical behavioral patterns and triggers. Knowledge acquisition requirement. This knowledge would require multiple nights of observation of Burke's nighttime patterns, understanding Burke's bathroom habits and timing, observation of when Burke was in deep sleep versus light sleep, potentially multiple reconnaissance visits to the house. Forensic implication: an intruder with this level of detailed knowledge would represent not a spontaneous opportunist, but a sophisticated, planned operation, requiring extended reconnaissance. Part 10. The family member alternative: known patterns. A family member would have automatic knowledge of these variables. Family member knowledge. Knows Burke's exact sleep patterns from living in the household. Knows Burke's bathroom routine because they share the household. Can predict when Burke is most likely to be asleep. Understands Burke's responses to family members versus strangers. Can potentially time actions around Burke's known sleep/wake cycles. If operation needed to happen during a time Burke was likely awake, could plan accordingly because of intimate household knowledge, behavioral advantage. A family member could manage the Burke variable through timing the action for when Burke's sleep was predictable, deepest, understanding Burke's response patterns and being able to manage them, using household familiarity to move quietly and avoid acoustic detection. 11. The bathroom light factor, operational complication. The fact that a bathroom light was left on, testified to by both John and Patsy, created an additional operational complication. Illumination variables. A lit bathroom provides hallway illumination. Hallway illumination reduces an intruder's concealment. Illumination increases probability that a child emerging from the bathroom would see an intruder. Illumination increases probability an intruder would see Burke if he emerged. Operational choice. An intruder could 1. Turn off the bathroom light, creating detectable change, potentially alerting household. 2. Work in the existing light, reducing concealment, increasing visibility risk. 3. Extract JonBenet despite bathroom light, accepting higher detection risk. Forensic question: if an intruder had been present and conducting extraction, would they have turned off the bathroom light? If yes, this represents an additional action creating detectability. If no, the operation occurred in partially illuminated conditions, reducing concealment. Part 12. Probability cascades. Exponential failure. Risk. A detailed probability analysis of an intruder successfully extracting JonBenet while avoiding Burke encounter. Independent risk variables. 1. Burke remains asleep during extraction window. Probability: 65 Horsch are 70%. Children wake at night. Burke's documented bathroom pattern suggests 30 to 35% probability of being awake. 2. Burke doesn't need bathroom during extraction window. Probability: 70, like a 75%. Bathroom visits are regular but not continuous. Extraction takes 10-20 minutes. 3. If Burke is awake, needs bathroom, he doesn't emerge during extraction. Probability: 60-70%. Open door provides access. If awake, likelihood of needing or emerging for bathroom is moderate high. 4. If Burke emerges and sees the intruder, he doesn't vocalize resist. Probability: Bowers 15-25%. Encountering unknown adult with unconscious sibling would trigger alarm response. 5. Acoustic signals during extraction don't alert Burke if he's in near bathroom. Probability: 50-60%. Movement, footsteps, stairs have acoustic signature. 6. Extraction is completed and intruder departs before Burke's parents respond to any alert. Probability: Doctor 40-60%. Intruder needs 10-20 minutes. Parents need time to respond. Combined probability calculation: 0.70, 0.75, 0.65x, 0.20, 0.55, 0.50, 0.036, or approximately 3.6%. This calculation suggests less than 4% probability of an intruder successfully extracting JonBenet while avoiding Burke detection, assuming standard household patterns and alert responses. Part 13. The silence. Variable: why Burke matters forensically. The forensic significance of the Burke factor centers on his silence. If Burke encounter occurred, evidence should exist. Physical signs on Burke, psychological indicators, behavioral trauma. Burke might remember. Appearance of intruder, threat made, method of intimidation. Burke might have marks from restraint or threat generation. Burke would have detailed knowledge of the intruder's identity. If Burke encounter did not occur, this suggests either 1. Burke was asleep, highly fortunate timing. 2. Burke didn't need bathroom that night, fortunate circumstance. Or 3. Extraction was managed by someone whose proximity to Burke did not constitute threat requiring silencing the investigative problem. If an intruder successfully avoided Burke detection, this represents extraordinary luck across multiple independent variables. If a family member avoided Burke detection, this represents predictable household knowledge and timing control. Part 14. Hiding locations and extraction routes. Spatial constraint. An intruder removing JonBenet would need to navigate specific routes, possible routes to second floor, front staircase, passes common areas, back staircase, near kitchen, butler's door to basement. Unknown service access, not established, possible routes from second floor with child, front staircase, exposed, passes through common areas, back staircase, toward kitchen basement exit. Burke's bedroom positioning. Burke slept in the bed, closest to the door. This positioning placed him in the most proximal location for detecting hallway movement. An intruder would need to pass Burke's partially open door to reach the staircase. Burke could observe hallway. Activity if awake. Hiding location problem. An intruder hiding in JonBenet's room waiting for extraction time would be essentially trapped in the room with the child. Leaving the room early created exposure. Staying in the room created prolonged contact with the child in a confined space. Part 15. Behavioral psychology of sibling risk. What intruders do. From a criminal psychology perspective, intruders committing serious crimes in multi-child homes face distinctive behavioral challenges. Documented patterns. Intruders conducting kidnappings in homes with multiple children typically show evidence of encountering siblings or of planning encounters. Avoiding sibling contact requires either elaborate planning or extraordinary luck. When siblings are encountered, intruders typically either flee or commit additional violence. The Ramsey case paradox. If an intruder was present and successfully removed JonBenet while avoiding Burke detection, this represents either 1. Extraordinary luck, less than 4% probability based on risk calculus. 2. Elaborate prior surveillance and planning, evidence of which should exist. 3. The extraction occurred when Burke was demonstrably asleep, would require specific timing knowledge. Conclusion. Burke as a detection multiplier. The presence of Burke on the same floor as JonBenet created what forensic analysts call an exponential risk multiplier for an intruder operation. What this multiplier reveals: 1. Risk probability. An intruder successfully avoiding Burke detection while extracting JonBenet would face less than 4% probability if relying on chance encounter avoidance. 2. Knowledge requirement. Successfully navigating the Burke variable would require intimate household knowledge: when Burke sleeps, when he bathrooms, his response patterns, his routine. 3. Behavioral indicators. If Burke had been encountered, evidence should exist: psychological trauma, physical marks, detailed memory of the intruder. The absence of such evidence is investigatively significant. 4. Timing dependency. The operation required extraordinarily fortunate timing across multiple independent variables, or it required someone with household familiarity, able to predict and work within those variables. 5. Complexity versus probability. An operation of this complexity working successfully on a single night strain's probability. A family member with household knowledge could have made timing, knowledge-based decisions that a stranger could not. Burke's presence in the home, in the same hallway, with documented nighttime bathroom patterns, created cascading risks for an intruder. Either those risks were extraordinarily fortunate to avoid, or they were managed by someone with household knowledge and behavioral predictability of the second child.
So, my way in on this is that, so far we've been kind of arguing that this idea of having, and we probably talked about this before, but having Burke's bedroom on the same floor as JonBenet's bedroom, I think, sort of creates this exponential hazard for an intruder, because as we analyze, what the intruder is doing and how the intruder is trying to move around, and not only when the family is out of the house, but how do you move around while the family's in the house? You can't just walk scot-free through the house. No matter how well you know the house, you can't just walk scot-free through the house, because you have to remember you're in a house full of 4 people who also know the house better than you do, probably. Even if you spent time in that house, these 4 people have lived there for 4 years. 90? Since 90, what is it, 1990? I think? No. 94. Couple years. I think since 93 or 94. Something like that. 92. I think JonBenet was born in 1990. Anyways, they've lived there for some time, and you probably come after them and whatnot. And so they know this house a lot better than you do. It requires you kind of having to know multiple things. Okay. So anyways, there's an exponential hazard for an intruder to sort of remove her. And so kind of working through this analysis, we in some places sort of calculate or see calculations that an intruder would face multiple independent risks, things like Burke waking up, possibly just to wake up. You know how Burke said, hey, I went downstairs just to go down the stairs, because I wanted to put this toy together. He woke up at Christmas. He woke up at Christmas because he wanted to go down, or Christmas Eve, I'm sorry, because he wanted to go down and kind of see what was going on. And the thing about that is, we know, and he did that, I think, the year prior as well, for 1995. He did that as well. So we know that Burke likes to get up, and sometimes JonBenet is up with him. So we know she likes to get up for certain reasons, just depending on their kids. There's no rhyme or reason to why a kid gets up in the middle of the night. It could be for a multitude of reasons: to go to the restroom, to go play the video game when they're not supposed to be down there, to go get something to eat, to just to be up walking around the house because it feels fun. It feels like nobody else is up, so I'm going to get up and walk around the house, right? And so you have one kid that can do that and multiply that by 2. And I tell you, like my brothers and I, we would always get up every single night. We'd get up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom every single night. If it's not me, it's one of my brothers getting up and going to the restroom all times of night, or getting up, going to the playroom, to play the video game all times of night, getting up, going down the stairs to get something to eat, getting up, going down the stairs to check if my parents are still asleep. So, that's 3 kids. So you have a lot of movement. And so for 2 kids and 2 parents, I don't think my parents would get it. Once they went in their room, they wouldn't come out too much. So you really don't have to worry about that now. But this is the thing, though. When my parents would get up, it would be a huge surprise. When my parents would get up, It could come out of nowhere. And I say that because as an intruder, you have to factor those in as well. And, your heart rate is going to be up, right? We think of so many times when we talk about this case, we think of an intruder who is cool, who is calm, who is collected, who is fearless and is not worried about anything and knows what to do in each and every scenario. But you got to know, because it's one thing. I think we have to distinguish. It's one thing to be somebody in a house up when you're not supposed to be, right? It's also another thing to be somewhere or in a house that you don't belong in, wide awake, right? So, for example, it's one thing for JonBenet to be wide awake in her house. That's her house. So the most amount of blowback that she's going to get is, what are you doing up? We got to get up in the morning, go back to bed. You're not allowed to be up in the middle of the night. But for an intruder who somebody wakes up and they catch them, it's a different story, because we're no longer talking about, blah, blah, blah. How you doing, neighbor? Howdy, neighbor. How you doing? It's, hey, I'm calling the cops. So it's that extra layer of thinking that the intruder has to do to make sure that they don't get caught. You see what I'm saying? So there's an extra level of stress. There's an extra level of precaution that goes into play. And so when we think about that extra level of precaution, the intruder can't be caught by anyone, right? It's not like when you watch The Grinch and Cindy Lou Who catches the Grinch and the Grinch can hide behind the Christmas tree and tell her whatever and then sneak back up the chimney. It's not like that. This guy, or two of them, it's two of them, right? Neither one of them can be seen by anyone. And so that's a lot of weight to bear. A lot of eggshells to have to walk on, because these people could get up at any time. And I say that about my parents, going back to the example I'm going to finish my example about my parents. I remember a couple of times. One time, and I'll just give two. One time I was downstairs, I'm on the computer, I'm not supposed to be there. We had a computer in the front living room, or the den. We called it the den. The living room was somewhere, was on the other side. But we had a computer, the family computer, on the front, in the front den, like right by the kitchen or whatever. And so I'm down there. It's the middle of the night. All the lights are off. I'm on the computer, searching up some games or something like that, doing what kids do. That's what I'm saying. Like, just doing what kids do. What are you doing up? Oh man, I really wanted to search up this game, and I heard my friend talking about this game, and I really want to look it up and try to figure out what it is. And why? Essentially, as a child, you're like wondering, if you're doing that, you're like, why don't I have this game? Like, my friends have this game at school. I've heard people talking about it. Why don't I have it? Is it something that I should start begging or pleading with my parents to get me? So I was up for that. I think typically my parents would lock the door. I think they would lock the door. And that would kind of give you a hint of what to do. Or that would give you a hint of something. And so what we would do is, or what I would do is, if I'm in a situation, I'm sitting at the computer, blah, blah. And it would usually be my dad. It was rarely my mom. If it was my dad, I could say something. I think my dad was a little bit more strict, but he was in and out of all the time. My mom she usually had to get up in the morning and go to work early. So my dad would kind of ferry us everywhere and then go to work. If it was my dad, I could get away from it. If it was my mom, it's going to be a problem. So if my dad comes out, you'd hear the click of the door unlocking. You'd hear a ping, like a ping or something like that. And if you hear that, because it's going to, he's going to open the door a little bit slow because he's not expecting anybody to be out there. You have time to get off of the computer really quickly, run by the couch, let him move around or something like that, or hide under the couch, whatever you got to do, and like run through the kitchen or something like that. And then run through the kitchen, then run upstairs and get in bed. But the thing about the stairs, though, is that one of the stairs, when you step on it, and we knew which one it was, one of the stairs, when you step on it, you got to be careful. You have to step over it because one of the stairs made like a metal sound. And so you could be all these things that you have to watch out for. You see how I'm explaining some of the nooks and crannies of a house that I know of, right? And so as I know of this house, I remember because I've been at that house for 10 years. So I know like the ins and outs of this house. I know what stair is gonna make a sound so I can step over it. I know how my bare feet sound against the floor, sound against the carpet. They sound against the marble floor or whatever it was. I know how my feet sound against that. So I can't just go running through and while my feet are freaking slapping against the ground, right? I have to be careful about how I'm maneuvering through the house. And that's me being careful, knowing what I'm doing, knowing where I'm going. An intruder, you probably who came in like just on, even though he had 4 hours, right? Let's say he gets there, John and Patsy leave at 4:30. I know there was some discrepancy in the interviews of what time they left to go to the Christmas party. But I think Patsy said like 5 or 6. John put it earlier at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, so let's say 4:30. They leave at 4:30 to get to the Christmas party, and they're at the Christmas party. They don't get home until 9:15. So you have from about 4:15, or I'm sorry, 4:10. You have until like 4:45, say about 4:45, for wait till they leave, or 4:40, 4:45, wait till they leave, and then you can start moving. So you have between like 4:40 and 9:15, because if you hear the garage go up, then it's going to alert you. If you're downstairs, it's going to alert you. Now, one thing that we can assume about the intruder is that the intruder, at the time when John and Patsy came home, the intruder had to have been downstairs. If we go by what John is saying about the ability to hear downstairs from his room to the garage, either this intruder was at least on the second floor, at least, and somewhere over probably by JonBenet's room, at the very least, that's where he was. Because, if you're on the third floor, you probably can't hear it, and then you'll be stuck up in John and Patsy's room. So he had to be, or both of them had to be down there closer to the ground to be able not only to maneuver downstairs and out of sight, but also to sort of get out of sight and get away, so that, and to know how to get away so that John and Patsy and the entire family couldn't see them. Because it's not just about hiding in the kitchen, because Burke and John come through the kitchen, or Burke comes through the kitchen. Patsy and John cross up through the spiral staircase, take JonBenet to her room, and John crosses over the hallway, comes down the front steps, and he's in the living room and stuff like that, which is right by the kitchen. And so you can't just be caught in the middle. You got to be down in the basement, out of sight, right? So we had to assume that this person is well aware of what's going on when John and Patsy, they made a beeline to get downstairs really fast, however they did it. Okay, that's fair. But we're putting a lot, and when you break it down, we understand that we're putting a lot on the intruder or intruders to have to know the nooks and the crannies of the house. When we take things at face value that are said about this intruder and we just accept them, there are so many things that are missing. Like I just mentioned, the nooks and the crannies of the house. I'll give you a second one. I remember being upstairs one night. I was upstairs. I'm up. I'm playing the video game in the other room, sort of like across the hallway from my room, playing the video game, and I think the playroom was over my mom and dad's room, and so I hear the click of the door through the floor. I hear the click of the door, or I either hear the click of the door or I hear my dad open the door, and we could do one or two things because there was a guest room right across the hallway. So you have the playroom over here, and you have the guest room like right across the hallway, but then you have my bedroom over here. And so one of the things we could do is if we heard my dad, I think we would leave the door open, the playroom door open. If we heard my dad coming up the stairs, because he would come up to watch, movies and VHS tapes and stuff like that. So if I heard him, you either run across the hallway, or if you can catch him fast enough to where you hear him come out, you turn off the game, turn off the TV, click, 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 really fast. You could hide in the closet, but that wouldn't be safe because my dad could come in there just for no reason. It's all toys in that closet, but my dad could come in and be like, oh, I think I left something in here, whatever, just to do whatever. So the safest bet is to kind of get out and like dash across the hallway, to go to the restroom or to, go in the bedroom. So this is what I'm saying. If it were in my house, right? Think about all of that movement. If it were in my house, JonBenet wouldn't have gone anywhere. JonBenet wouldn't have gotten kidnapped. There's no way. There's too much movement in the house at all times of night. And that's what I'm saying. You cannot predict who's doing what. And that's what we're asking of the intruder. And I know not every circumstance is like mine. I get that. But we are asking of the intruder to be able to navigate all of these risks. Burke waking up, Burke needing to use the bathroom, encountering the intruder in the hallway of some sort. The risks compound exponentially, right? And, this guy could be, based off what I just described about our movement, this guy could have picked up JonBenet, could be trying to extract JonBenet, and Burke gets up just to go to the restroom. You got his little sister in your hands. Where are you going to go? It's not like you can take her and run. That's what I'm saying. You can't just take her and run. If you run and your shoes are slamming against the ground, first of all, if you run with JonBenet in your hands, you're shaking her. She's going to wake up. I think you get my point. There's so much, even if you use the stun gun, even if you restrain her, in order to get out of pocket, there's like out of the way, there's so much that you have to do to avoid people. And I go back to the example of the young lady. I go back to the example of the young lady who or the family who there was some sort of criminal who broke into their house, and some intruder who broke into their house, right? And he came in there. He was in her room whispering, and the mom still heard it. You understand what I'm saying? That's the thing that we don't even think about in that scenario. A lot of people hear, oh, wow, it's possible. We're not talking about what's possible. We're talking about what actually could happen. What's more probable? The mom heard this man talking, and she got up and walked in the room and scared him out. Guess what? He gets up, he jumps out the window, he's done. No kidnapping. No essay. It's aborted. For this man to take JonBenet, two people at that, to be able to take JonBenet, and to be coordinated enough to be able to avoid the possibility that John, Patsy, Burke, and I know John makes the point that, oh, we were all exhausted, we were all tired from that night. Yeah, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I understand. But being tired doesn't stop you from getting up and going to the restroom. Being tired doesn't stop you from being hungry, right? Being tired doesn't stop you from having sort of these nighttime, mood shifts, I might call them, to where you're just like, I just feel